moving into our modern halacha, the question today is, especially for Sephardic and specifically Persians, what's the idea of Chalav Yisrael versus Chalav Stam? And what was the custom in Iran? Should we keep it? Shouldn't we keep it? What's the right thing? It's a fascinating thing. What Rav Moshe Feinstein writes about it, that became kind of the minhag in America, where most of the hashkachas were makel. There's a Gemara in Avodah Zarah, Daf Lamed Hey, that says something very important. It says, "Elu dvarim shelo kochavim yusuran and yusur hanaa." We know, Chachamim, and this is really, really heartbreaking, guys. This is one of the most difficult and painful times in Jewish history, where in many communities, including America, San Francisco, and certain age groups, is almost 70% assimilation. France, our Chachamim saw this in Ruach HaKodesh, because Galut is a very dangerous place, right? That's why every second we want Mashiach now, because every second we're in Galut, in exile, so many pure Jewish souls that just don't know any better get fried and into the depths of the satanic, Jews for Jesus, and all these, assimilation and Buddhists. We've had hundreds of thousands of Jews become Buddhists. You know that. Rabbi Tatz had to write a book about that. And it's a shame. Chachamim saw that this was going to happen. That's why they instituted many laws like Bishul Akum. Now, the Mishnah is just going off the previous sugya. Is there's certain things that rabbinically are even usher for any benefit, like yain nesech, right, which is stam yeno, the wine of a goy, the wine of a non-Jew. Not only is forbidden to eat, but it's even forbidden to benefit. But the Mishnah compares and contrasts that to what? Chalav akum. What is chalav akum? Chalav akum is that if a Jew is not present and the cow is milked by a non-Jew, our Chachamim were afraid that perhaps what would happen there, the non-Jew would purge into the kosher milk the milk of a pig or a camel or a donkey, right? Those are the three prime things. Even though Rav Ovadia Yosef's son, the chief rabbi of Israel, and the Yalkut Yosef, writes something very fascinating. Did you know this? He said that kosher milk is white. Non-kosher milk has a more of a greenish or yellowish tinge to it. Yeah.
How is milk non-kosher? If it's from a pig, is it not kosher?
Yeah, no. So that's this whole chapter in Shulchan Aruch that talks about Chalav Yisrael. Yeah. Is the chapter of Kol Haba Mitameh Tameh. You know what that means? Which means
that comes from a tameh animal is tameh.
The only exception to this is bees and honey. But the classical rule, there's always an exception to every rule, but 99% of the time, if something is impure, like a pig, then any byproduct of the pig, like the pig's milk or the pig's urine, I apologize, because it used to be an ancient treaty. Even Rabbi Ovadia Yosef writes that people that had asthma, they would eat the urine of a donkey. And sometimes they would say it's a thing. He talks about it. He says if the guy, he says halachically it's okay to do. If you're
saying that animal's tummy.
No, if the guy's asthma is life threatening, and it's actually a proven bona fide doctor. I mean, nowadays I don't think it's legit. We have, but I'm saying this chapter of Shulchan Aruch is just going on that idea that any byproduct of an animal, the only exception to this is that we need a pasuk. The Gemara in Bechoros brings that. How do we know honey should also be non-kosher? Because bees are not kosher. So that the Gemara brings Eretz Zavat Chalav U'Devash. It's the land of milk and honey, and the Gemara brings different exceptions to that rule. So I actually have one of my students, Jason, a shout out to you. He said that he did find in Erewhon camel milk. So one of the reasons why Rav Moshe, and then we'll see Rav Shalt Soloveitchik, the Rosh Yeshiva of YU, and which he was a big Gaon, he was of the Brisk dynasty.
Yashav Ber?
Yashav Ber has a whole heter that he held like Rav Moshe. But The issue over there is that don't make a mistake. Chachamim were worried that the non-Jew perhaps he has to give you like a gallon of white milk and he ran out, then he'd make half of it pig's milk or camel milk. So that's why any milk that a Jew did not supervise, we're worried that there may be a mixture of non-kosher meat from a non-kosher species, and therefore it's not permitted. Now,
can you take a question now, or should we?
Yeah, just let's do the questions at the end because I don't want to lose my train of thought. Now, the $1 million question is that in the United States of America, and I just wanted to also go talk about butter. Remind me to talk about butter and powdered milk because those are also nagea. Let's just go into the crux of it. The great posek of America, where was universally accepted as the number one authority of America, the Lubavitcher Rebbe and Rabbi Yashiv Ber and Rav Shach and all the Gedolim would ask him all their halachic questions. The Mara Da'atra, the master of halachic expertise in America, was Moshe Feinstein. Rav Moshe Feinstein wrote a hallmark monumental tshuva that really changed the whole observance of Chalav Yisrael in America. And we want to analyze that and also bring out a fascinating dispute to explain why the Chatam Sofer rejects Rav Moshe, and it's really fascinating material that I was not aware of. Rav Moshe Feinstein basically makes a compelling argument. Rav Moshe Feinstein writes it's in Igrot Moshe, his encyclopedia on halacha, his responda, Yoreh De'ah, chapter volume 1, Teshubah 47, for those that want to look it up. And I'll read for you what Rav Moshe Feinstein writes about Chalav Yisrael verbatim, so we know exactly what he's talking about. Because I know the Chabad rabbis were, a lot of people were disturbed that they say Rav Moshe's thing was taken out of context. But you also have to understand that whether the OK, which is run by Chabad, it's Rabbi Levi is Chabad, OK, the OU, and the Chav K, the star K really does not give to Chalav Stam, but they created another hechsher called the star D. But in America, based on what Moshe Feinstein writes here, the vast majority of the kashrut agencies that accumulatively certify hundreds of thousands of products, right? Not thousands, not tens of thousands, but between the OU, OK, and Chav K. I was just in Bonds last night. You see all the pies have Chav K dairy, Chav K, And, the Canadian, a lot of the stuff is cooked in Canada. So Rav Moshe writes basically like this, that Lachen b'chalav shafilu rak b'chavu akum ve'ni sobreu yesh later. So he says that I want to give a hallmark heter that even though there was no Jew, so basically, how do we solve the problem of perhaps there being non-kosher? A Jew supervises, right? So if a Jew is there, it's like a mashkiach. So the thing can't do any hanky-panky. So Rav Moshe Feinstein writes that in the United States of America and Europe, where they have a kind of what equivalent of a USDA, he says, Gam Yisrael yoidim yediyah berura da'ava karaya. He says basically, if we know for a fact, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that this is impossible for this milk statistically to have any non-kosher milk in it, it's like it's a anan sahade. It's like, even though we didn't see it, but we know it. And he writes like this, V'yesh she'em yarvu yanashim v'sulisar esek shalem. He says, listen, the bottom line is, if anybody wants to play around the game and put, let's say some guy went crazy, right? He had too much marijuana, and he says, basically, he's going to be fined. By the way, I did a lot of research on this. The OU, just to let you guys know, said that this is something that is well monitored. Between 2 and 6 times a year, they make sure to monitor that the milk is actually fully cow. He says currently the government inspects all milk farms 2 to 6 times a year. Government state farm inspection protocol specifically includes a provision that only cows are in the farm's milking parlors or cow yard, which means it's against state protocol in the United States of America for you to share your dairy, right? If your farm makes dairy products where you milk the cows, you cannot have any non-kosher animals. Which means a farm that would want to make non-kosher milk would have to be a different, separate, you understand? It's against state protocol. By the way, it's also, you have the feds and the state, a lot of times it's a double type of thing. Government inspectors track the intake and outtake of all milk at dairy farms. Thus, the source farms are identified by the inspectors and they must correlate with the farms approved by the government. So they audit it, it's like kind of a foolproof thing. So Moshe Feinstein basically says, this guy would have to be crazy to shoot himself in the head and go and bring non-kosher because they're probably going to close down his dairy farm and he's going to lose millions of dollars. Right? So he's very afraid of the inspectors that we say come to 2 to 6 times a year. And it's basically, we have a clear knowledge, even though we haven't seen it, but we know that this is kosher milk, right? So we know there's nothing non-kosher in there, no non-kosher meat. Rav Moshe Feinstein says this is according to all opinions, what I'm saying. Even according to the Shulchan Aruch, so the Rav Moshe Feinstein basically writes, he says, if you want to be lenient and have non-Chalav Yisrael. Now, Rav David Feinstein and Rav Reuven Feinstein, they actually argue that according to Rav Moshe, this is Chalav Yisrael. Which means the USDA is acting like a Jewish mashgiach. The cost is so prohibitive, you understand? It's like to do something so silly, it's not worth it for them.
Right.
So he says this is a big reason, Rav Moshe writes. He says, first of all, most of the people in America do not kill Chalav Yisrael. This was written in Tafshin Yud Dalet. When is that, Joel? Tafshin Yud Dalet. This is back in, so we're Tafshin Pei Gimel. So this is 70 years ago. Pei Gimel. 80. And then Yud Dalet is 14. So 70 years ago, Rav Moshe Feinstein says most of the people were not keeping Chalav Yisrael, the from people in America. And he said a lot of Rabbanim don't keep it either. So it says, Chas v'shalom, we should say that they're going against Halacha. He says if you want to be Machmir, though, if you're a Ben Torah and he says it is appropriate to be Machmir, and it doesn't show that you're a show-off, Yehura, right? There's certain chumrah, certain stringencies you shouldn't do if you're not on the level, right? But Moshe Feinstein says, no, to keep Chalav Yisrael the right way, the classical way, is not a show-off. It's not Yehura. And he says, I myself am Machmir. And he says, Chas v'shalom, somebody that goes on Rav Moshe's heter to say that since there's no way in the world that this guy is going to bring non-kosher, because it's not worth it for him. It's just he's going to get shut down and lose millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars. He says we shouldn't view those people...
that whole Chalav Yisrael as like...
No, that whole Chalav Stam, right? So what all the hashkachas give you, OU, okay, all the milk products, it's called Chalav Stam. Now, we shouldn't... Rav Moshe writes here that Chas v'shalom, you should be mazalzel in them, like make fun of them, ridicule them, and think that they are not meticulous in keeping their mitzvahs. So the OU, actually the director of the OU, which is himself a great Talmid Chacham, they interviewed him. And they asked him that what's the story with you? So he said that his Rebbe, Rav Yosef Ber Soloveitchik, the Rav, the Rosh Hashiva, he said that he had 3 reasons that his Rebbe did not help like Rav Moshe Feinstein. Which is actually fascinating, and then we'll go to what Rav Avadia writes about this, Rav Avadia and the Sephardic Poskim. He said that Rav Soloveitchik's students knew when he resided in the United States, he drank plain packaged milk, right? That was non-Chalav Yisrael. Parenthetically, he was the Rav of Boston. Now, he had 3 reasons why he was Mekel, Rav Soloveitchik. First of all, there's the Pri Chadash, which we're going to go into. The Sephardim, by the way, guys, us Persians did not used to keep Chalav Yisrael in Iran. This I clarified with the greatest
What about other Middle Eastern?
Sephardic poskim. We're going to get into all the other Middle Easterns.
Okay.
The Rabbi Netanelli, whenever he has a question, he asks the Av Betin of Rav Avadia's Bedin, Rav Gidon Ben Moshe, that actually comes to LA quite a few times. My friend Michael Motamedi learns with him an hour a day over the phone. So at the end of the shir, we'll say his psak. But it's clear that in Iran, the Pri Chadash is a fascinating thing. The Pri Chadash says that, what's your problem? You're afraid that there's non-kosher mixed in? But what about if all the dairy farms, there is no non-kosher? All the dairy farmers, they only milk the milk of cows and goats. There are no camel dairy farms. There's the person that's Old McDonald that's giving you your milk does not have any when you go to get the milk, right? Before the world was commercialized and we had, Ralph's and stuff, people would have to go to the dairy farmer. He says the guy doesn't have in his pasture amongst his flock that he milks any pigs even on that farm or any camels. So the Pri Chadash, this is from a few hundred years ago. By the way, the Pri Chadash is one of the greatest. He's actually a very brazen, audacious posek. He even argues on the Shulchan Aruch. The Rav Chizkiah de Sila, he's a great Sephardic posek, the Pri Chadash. The Pri Chadash already wrote many millennia ago that.
What kind of Sephardi is he? From where?
I think he was from Egypt and Eretz Yisrael. He gives a heter already a few hundred years ago. He says that if the farmer has no non-kosher animals that he's getting milk from, because he doesn't even have those in his flock, and it's just the people don't even drink it. It's not part of the culture of the. Why would anybody milk non-kosher thing? It's to sell it, but if nobody buys it, everybody prefers cow milk because they can make it into butter and cheese.
I heard they could do it to increase the protein level of the milk.
Yeah, but the Pri Chadash is just trying to say that if there are no non-kosher animals in the herd that's being milked, right? So you've been to the milk farm, your grandfather, your great-grandfather 1,000 times, right? Between you and your brothers and cousins, the holy, right? You've never seen the guy milk. The guy doesn't have any of these animals on his farm. So the Pri Chadash already a few hundred years ago wrote that you don't that you don't have to be worried. It's considered, it's kosher. Then he brings a fascinating other heter. Rav Soloveitchik held that since the whole thing, see, if you look at the Gemara, you learn the sugi and the poskim. We're afraid that the non-Jew may, like Joel said, maybe for some odd reason he wants to make it taste better, or he's anti-Semitic. He wants to, sometimes they do crazy stuff like that to mess with us, But Rav Soloveitchik makes another compelling argument, and that is that this is all machine. So it's a three reasons, right? How are you going to get non-kosher milk when the whole thing is not even done by humans anymore? Already from 50, 60, 70 years ago, you understand? Mm-hmm. It's a commercial factory, and the only thing they really care about is money. So they want to produce as much milk as possible. No human is interfering. It goes to the udder of the cow. The machine pulls it and thinks. So how is non-kosher going to get mixed into there? So for these three reasons, the OU held that it's not a problem. Now, I want to get to butter and
Baby powder?
milk powder. Powdered milk, because you should know the vast majority, a lot of the commercialized things, milk powder is only a fraction of the price of fresh milk. You know that. So a lot of the things use milk powder or whey. If you see proteins that have whey, people that work out, they need to have whey. So let's see what the position of Rav Ovadia Yosef is. The issue over here, if somebody wants to look this up, is in Yalkut Yosef, Volume 2, Isur Veheter, page 86 and 87, Halacha Chet. He says that Now this is very important to realize that many people reject what Rav Moshe Feinstein says, like the Hasidic. Now, I would be doing you a disservice if I would just let you know that this idea that Rav Moshe Feinstein brings, that there's no reason in the world for the farmer to come give you non-kosher milk because he's going to get fined and he's going to close down his farm, right? Because it's fraudulent and it's just not worth it for him. There's no reason in the world why he would do it. He's very scared. This is not only the opinion, this argument, the Chazon Ish, none other, holds like Rav Moshe. And it's brought down here in Rabbi Zakkai, one of the great authors. He's probably written over 100 halachic works and works on Musar. Rabbi Zakkai, Esfahani rabbi, that is a great malaket. He actually brings something fascinating. He says the Chazon Ish brings the same rationale as the Rav Moshe Feinstein. So it's not only Rav Moshe. And he says that even one of the Talmidim of the Stipler, Rav Chaim Kanievsky's father, he brings a fascinating thing. He says that the Stipler once even said that you could, for your children especially, right? See, there's a third camp that says that you have to understand, Rav Moshe Feinstein's argument is a very strong argument. That the Chazon Ish holds up, the Stipler, the great Rosh Hashiva of Bnei Brak, that his son became the Gadol Hador, Rav Chaim Kanievsky's father, the Kilas Yankiv. And I'll read it for you verbatim. He writes that he says first of all, the Kinyan Torah, there's a lot of poskim in Bnei Brak that says this whole heter of Moshe Feinstein and the Chazon Ish was only given for sick and old people, right? They needed to get their milk and needed to get their natural calcium and magnesium and vitamin D, which is in a lot of the. So it was only for old people or sickly people or children. But he says that not only did the Chazon Ish, but he says that practically speaking, his brother-in-law, the Kilas Yankiv of Stipler, also told people that they could go buy Chalav Stam, non-Chalav Yisrael, to give to their kids. So it's just not like, we have to understand, Rav Moshe sounds like a one outliner posik that holds of this. So let's go understand the different schools of thought. Why people are stringent and why people are strict. And then we'll see what the minhag in Iran is, and we'll talk about butter and powdered milk. See, the issue over here the Yalkut Yosef brings is that we know for a fact, the reason why not to hold like Rav Moshe Feinstein is based on the Rashba and the Gemara. The Gemara says when Chachamim make a rabbinical decree, the only way to nullify that decree is you need a greater bet din, that is either has more members or has more knowledge than the bet din that forbid the thing. So the issue over here is that for thousands of years Chalav Yisrael was forbidden. Now you, Rav Moshe Feinstein, of the Pri Chadash, by the way, you have to understand that according to Rav Soloveitchik, it's 3 different heters. You understand? He says first of all everything is by machine, so Chachamim never answered. But by machine, if the whole factory is made to make kosher milk, how are you going to get non-kosher? And the Pri Chadash. See, the Chazon Ish seems to put the Pri Chadash's rationale and Rav Moshe's rationale together. But Rav Soloveitchik and many other people say, no, it has nothing to do with each other. There's one thing that the guy is scared that he's going to get shut down by the U.S., by the government if he does it. There's another reason that what? He's not even in the business of giving you non-kosher milk because he doesn't have it any on his farm. So that's right. Mm-hmm. So now the Chazon Ish kind of says that Rav Moshe is basing himself on the Pri Chadash. That's a different, but clearly the poskim that are machmir, they are going with this rationale that
we don't challenge their rabbis.
Right. You want to take a halacha that we've kept in a rabbinical halacha and say, since the reason doesn't apply anymore, so we don't need a mashkiach anymore. We don't need a Chalav Yisrael, a Jew, watching it. By the way, parenthetically, you don't need a mashkiach tamidi. the Yalkut Yosef writes very clearly that as long as before the non-Jews started milking the cow, the bucket was empty, right? And was clean. As long as you go in and come out, you don't have to be there on top of him, auditing him 24/7. Parenthetically, you should know, since this whole thing is rabbinical in nature, my good friend that has a whole Sephardic halachic center, it could be, I think the Star K holds like this. Some people hold it could be Chalav Yisrael. You don't need the naked eye to be mashgiach through cameras.
But that holds?
The OU doesn't hold of it. It could be other hashkachas hold of it. It would make sense, because last week I gave it a whole shiur on yichud. You know how you're not allowed to be alone with a woman. If somebody's watching you through a camera, some poskim do give the heter, because it's even worse. You're being recorded, so it's like evidence against you. So here also, if the guy does anything bad, in a way it's even better than a mashgiach, because the guy could deny and say the mashgiach is lying, but here it's being recorded. You see that he's being. So it's just something to consider, that some poskim may consider that good, but.
Well, why is it that some hold it's not enough?
Oh, the thing.
What would be the concern?
Because the concern is that other poskim argue that the rabbinic requirements of Chalav Yisrael mandates that the Jew must be physically present. So checking the barn and even not being there the whole process is not required. As you could go in and come out, right? Because the guy's scared, right? You have to be there 24/7 while he's milking. But as long as you started off that he was on the right process, it was a kosher cow, kosher, But they say that, I honestly, I don't know, but they believe that the physical, I guess, for the guy to be scared to do anything, he needs a physical mashgiach there. They don't hold of it. But here's the issue I want to bring out. The reason to argue on Rav Moshe Feinstein is, like I started telling you, is the Aruch HaShulchan. You have to understand, like we said, the Rabbi Jackner, which is a great online English halachic works he writes, essays, it says perhaps, I started the whole shir by saying the reason Chachamim institute to do it is there's two ways of looking at this gezerah. One reason is we don't want you to assimilate. So it could be there, like the Ben Ish Chai many times brings, it could be there's a Kabbalistic reason behind this milk being watched by a Jew. You understand? So therefore, those poskim that reject Rav Moshe Feinstein, they basically say like this. They say that in the end of the day, the Khatam Sofer, the Chachmas Adam, the Khatam Sofer can be found in chapter 1, Orach Chaim, Kuf Nun Zayin, that they reject the Pri Chadash, because they hold that the issue over here is that it doesn't necessarily have to do
with the kashrut.
With the kashrut, that we're worried you're going to bring something tameh. The rabbi said they said. We don't know all the reasons, right? So therefore, it could be that the reason they said is because they wanted you to go, not to go to Old McDonald, but to Old McDavid or Old McDaniel. And no, seriously. Yeah. Like for example, there's a halacha the Ben Ish Chai brings. A lot of people don't know. It's forbidden to eat in a goyish bar, even if all the beer you drink is kosher, because it's a gezerah. They didn't want you to. Where do people hook up and do all the bad stuff that they meet? It's in the bar. So the Chachamim realized that many thousands of years ago, and they made a gezerah against that. So the people that are machmir and reject the Pri Chadash is saying, okay, you think the only reason is that there's something defiled, something non-kosher may get inside, but the Chachamim, that was one reason they revealed, but there may be many reasons they didn't tell us. And one of those may be assimilation. That you, by keeping Chalav Yisrael, you're going to be holier and more removed from the goyim, and you can't mix and eat together, right? Mm-hmm. Because again, a lot of times the way people get intimate is through they break bread together, they eat together. But if you can't have his ice cream,
they're not at Baskin Robbins together,
right? You can't have a date at Baskin Robbins together, exactly. So. Those are the reasons that the Pri Chadash is thing. But let's go to Rav Moshe's heter. Rav Moshe's heter is a whole different thing. What Rav Ovadia Yosef rejects the Pri Chadash, by the way. Why? Because this you have to know. There was a great, great Sephardic rabbi that wrote over 75 Sepharim, 75, Maran Achida. He was so great that some people say the same way that we accepted all the Shulchan Aruch's halachas, we accepted everything the Chida said. Rab Chaim Yosef David Azulai. The Chida regarding this whole issue of the Pri Chadash, he says, see, in theory, he does hold of the rationale of the Pri Chadash, the Chida, Maran Achida. The issue with the Chida writes that the minhag of Eretz Yisrael and Syria was not like the Pri Chadash. Was to have real, like Chabad and Hasidim and all the Yeshivish Charedim people, that they have to have bona fide what? Chalav Yisrael, with a mashkiach and somebody going.
Syria, huh?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So therefore, Turkey also, he writes the Ramach Amir. So the Chida writes like this. Chida says, listen, if your minhag was like the Pri Chadash, then who am I to come argue on him? No, you could be lenient. You understand? But in case you don't know what your minhag is, halachically speaking, the right thing to do is to have it the real Chalav Yisrael. Now, let's read what so Rav Yitzhak Yosef brings in his book, Rav Moshe Feinstein, and he writes something very interesting. He writes, you should know that it's not only Rav Moshe Feinstein that holds like this, it's actually based on the Radvaz, one of the contemporaries. The Pri Chadash is based on the Radvaz. What is the Radvaz? He says, the Chalav eno davar shene'esar b'minyak rakatam. So again, like I was telling you before, the rationale of the Pri Chadash is based that it's not, they hold, Rav Moshe Feinstein, a lot of the Rav Moshe Feinstein students also hold of this. I saw in the OU. They hold, when the rabbis came and said you have to have Chalav Yisrael, the only reason they made the Gezerah because they were afraid they were going to have non-kosher, right? There were no spiritual assimilation reasons, right? So the Radvaz, which was a contemporary of the Shulchan Aruch, and is one of the most important Sephardic poskim, he was the chief rabbi of Egypt, and he lived at the same time as Rabbi Yosef Karo. He writes it. He writes it in chapter 75 in Shal Chuvas HaRadvaz. He says, "Chalav, milk, eino davar shene'esar b'minyan." It's never that the Bet Din came and say it's also like bishul akum. It's something. It's like the non-kosher wine, right? That it becomes intrinsically treif. The whole problem there is that if there's no mashkiach there may have gotten some non-kosher mixed in. Therefore, you don't even have to go to the Pri Chadash. The Radvaz is like more of a Rishon. He's a very, very early Acharonim. He says anywhere that you know, based on the facts on the ground, that the farm doesn't have any, the farm that you're buying your milk from does not have any camels there. So how would camel milk get mixed into there? You can be lenient. So, bottom line is that since we have to talk about butter and thing, I just want to wrap this up. Rav Yitzchak Yosef writes that based on the opinion of his father, Rav Avadia, in Israel for sure you should keep real Chalav Yisrael. Why? Because 99% of the thing is Chalav Yisrael. So why would you go out of your... It's no mitzvah to go... And also, it's more than that. The minhag of Syria and all the lands surrounding Israel was that they were not lenient like the Pri Chadash, right? So therefore, but he writes something very interesting. He says somebody living in America, which is hard for him to get Chalav Yisrael milk, and I'll read it for you verbatim. He says he does, even in Israel, he says, listen, if somebody needs milk and he doesn't have Chalav Yisrael milk, and somebody's sick, like he needs to have a certain amount of calcium, and the doctor said you have to have milk in every day, or for little kids, even in Israel, Rav Yitzchak Yosef is lenient for sickly people and children. But regularly speaking in Israel, since most everything is Chalav Yisrael, so just go with the minhag and the classical halacha. But he writes something very interesting. He says people that live outside of Israel, this I will doing you a disservice. By the way, Mexico or any third world country which does not have a USDA, which means if, let's say you're living in China, China's not going to go arrest anybody for giving, everything is counterfeit there. They lie like, Rabbi Heinemann was once telling my brother-in-law that was taking a mashkiach course, like how to be a rabbinical coordinator. He said like for them lying is like drinking water. It's the same thing. There's no, Chinese? Yeah. They have no qualms about lying. It's like they don't believe in God. It's a different moral and ethical system. So definitely, so that comes in Afkamina, by the way. Let's go a little bit yeshivish deep. Lefi, Rav Moshe's heter is only going to help you in like Europe or a first world country where the guy's going to get fined so severely by giving you dairy, which is not real cow milk, that they're going to close the shop. But once you're in a third world country, that the guy's not afraid and everything's shady anyways, then it has to be Chalav Yisrael. But the Pri Chadash's heter would still stand, would apply. If you know for a fact that this farm, because it's like you're the mashkiach, right? You know for a fact this hamlet or town or small village that you're getting your milk from, organic milk from, you inspect, right? It's not like you were there when he milked the cows, but you inspect it and the guy does not have any, right? The Pri Chadash is saying on that farm, if nobody is milking, there are no other types of animals, right? It's only a cow farm. Then how would the farmer give you non-kosher? It doesn't make sense, right? So bottom line is very interesting. Rav Yitzhak Yosef says for people in America that it's hard for them to be machmer, they could have non-Chalav Yisrael. He says that they can be lenient, even if it's not sickly people, just regularly, because he's basically saying that. Now, I did research on this. What about Persians? See, the issue was that the way Rav Gidon ben Moshe, which is a big disciple of Chacham ben Zion Abba Shaul and Rav Ovadia, it seems that in Iran they were lenient like the Pri Chadash. I don't know if they had any mashkichim. Even hundreds of years ago, where every Persian Jew, Baruch Hashem, was holy and Shomer Shabbat, and right, none of them would carry because they would have an eruv. They knew the laws of eruv, right? This is before the second Har Sinai that the ones from Allianz, right?
Even in Tehran, you're saying?
Even in Tehran. There was no Tehran 100 years ago.
What if the Chalav Yisrael is accessible?
No, of course. No, Joe, let's back up here. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, that's why I read the Tshuva inside. There's no mitzvah to go out of your way and have non-Chalav Yisrael. But the issue, the way Rabbi Moshe Feinstein's children explained it is that the people that are big Hasidim of Rabbi Moshe Feinstein say that when you want to go towards this rationale that the Stipler holds up, the Chazon Ish holds up, and he brings a lot of other people, the Besamim Rosh, there are many other people that hold of Rav Moshe's, it wasn't only Rav Moshe's Chiddush. What happens is that the in a way they hold that this essentially is, our knowledge is making it like Chalav Yisrael. The USDA is good enough as being Chalav Yisrael, but bottom line is the minhag of Iran was that they were lenient like the Pri Chadash, and therefore in America, if one would like, bottom line, as a conclusion to the shir, you can be mekel. Because the minhag in America was Rav Henkin, which was the posek of America before Rav Moshe seems to hold that way, was the minhag in America was to be lenient. Now, nowadays in any major Orthodox community, you could readily get Chalav Yisrael. And by the way, there is something to be said. According to the Ben Ish Chai, if you look in the Ben Ish Chai, when he writes about this subject of eating Pas Yisrael and Chalav Yisrael and all these things, he says, obviously, Shani, the more careful you are, the more holy your children are, your family is, right? But somebody would be very, very sad for somebody to think that anybody that is lenient is just, it's basically, the heter is based on ancient Rishon, on people that were the contemporary of the Shulchan Aruch, the Radvaz. They're going just with the idea that, again, to kind of clarify where they're coming from, where Rav Soloveitchik and the heter comes from, is that the whole worry is that it's going to be non-kosher. It wasn't that they made this intrinsically something that's haram, right? It's not like they made this like yain nesech, that this is something that's like as pig. We're just worried that there may be pig milk in it. So if it's a type of situation that we basically are almost 100% sure, then it's fine. Those other poskim that argue say no. Now, regarding butter in Yeshiva and Erisol, they give you non-Chalav Yisrael butter. Why? Because the Rambam already writes this, and the Shulchan Aruch writes that butter does not need to be Chalav Yisrael. You know why? He says unless you have a Geonim, there were certain Geonim that did forbid it. It's a Sadia Gaon in the time of the Geonim, but the Rambam and Shulchan Aruch says that most Klal Yisrael, we follow the Geonim that said that Chachamim only went strictly against milk and not cheese. I'm sorry, butter. So why? Because again, it's based on the Radvaz. It's impossible to make butter from non-kosher thing because it doesn't get hard and it doesn't become solid. As I'll read it for you verbatim. Because milk from non-kosher animal species cannot be churned into butter. By the way, this Rav Heinemann of the Star K holds the same thing applies to cream cheese. He says cream cheese is basically made like butter. So he holds that cream cheese does not need to be Chalav Yisrael. It's an interesting heter. You understand? Because if you look at cream cheese, it's the same solidity as butter. Also, the real cream cheese. It's just the same way they make butter, they make cream cheese. He says since butter non-kosher milk cannot be churned into butter. So again, it's kind of like Rav Moshe's thing. We could be sure that it's coming from kosher milk, and as long as it has a kosher hashkacha, that they didn't put anything else into it, it's not artificial or margarine or right that's coming from non-kosher oil, it's fine. Now, what about
Powdered milk?
Powdered milk. So it's a very interesting thing that powdered milk goes like this. One of the Rav Ovadia's mentors, which was the chief rabbi of Yerushalayim, Rav Si Pesach Frank, he says that powdered milk is the exact same thing as what?
Cream cheese and butter.
Butter. Because he says okay, you may see in some random Irwan, 1 in a million that somebody, commercially available camel milk. I've never seen it, but you may, right, have seen such a thing. But to come and say that nobody makes
powdered milk from pig.
Exactly. There is no such system in the world to make it. And I don't know if
it's physically possible. Yeah.
I don't know if it's physically possible or impossible, but it's not commercially. It goes like the Pri Chadar. It's like and basically according to many poskim, it's not included in the prohibition of Chalav Akum. Rav Yitzchak Yosef, I don't know for why, he holds that. See, the Chazon Ish argues on this, by the way. The Chazon Ish says, how do you know? He says, he argues on Rav Si Pesach Frank. Rav Si Pesach Frank basically makes the argument that, listen, butter, I know there's Hasidim that are machmer even to have Chalav Yisrael butter, but I know in Ner Yisrael that they are machmer Chalav Yisrael. They got Rabbi Tendler to be very careful on that. Most of the people I know butter, they're makel, not to have Chalav Yisrael. Rav Si Pesach Frank says the whole thing, but the Chazon Ish says, how do you know? He says it's not necessarily. Butter is brought down in the Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam, but powdered milk is not. So he argues on that. It seems that Rav Ruderman from Ner Yisrael in Baltimore, a lot of the community eats from the Dunkin' Donuts there. Because, Dunkin' Donuts, the way they make their donuts is from powdered milk. Because Rav Ruderman, the founding Rosh Yeshiva of Baltimore, also held like Rav Si Pesach Frank. So I think it's a dispute amongst the children of Rav Ovadia what Rav Ovadia held. Because I remember hearing personally from Rav Ovadia's oldest son, that's alive, not Rav Yaakov Yosef, but Rav Abram Yosef, that he says that in Israel, they used to have Elite, the Elite brand, it's like one of the biggest.
The coffee?
Yeah, exactly. The coffee brand, it makes a lot of different, they used to have an Elite chocolate sugar candy, which Rav Ovadia used to love because of the caffeine. It used to have a lot of chocolate in it. And he says his father used to suck on these and stay up the whole night and learn many nights. So just sleep like 2-3 hours. You know, he was learning like almost 18-20 hours a day.
Wow.
So it seems that that I wasn't able to confirm. I'm 100% sure that I'd heard that Rav Ovadia was himself, because again, the thing used to come from outside Israel, this candy, right? And it used to be milk, dairy, and it used to have powdered milk in it. It was made with powdered milk. So, bottom line regarding butter, I've never heard, except maybe, I don't know, what's the minhag of Chabad? Butter, they're also machmer?
Yeah.
Okay, so it could be that the Hasidim are machmer, but the mainstream,
Same thing with cream cheese. No?
even the Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam, right? Butter is exception to the rule. Powdered milk, you have some major poskim to be somech on. That the state of Israel does allow. State of Israel does not allow non-Chalav Yisrael because it's to their benefit that they want mashkichim to be employed to make sure everything there. So in the state of Israel, you should know even the rabbinate, which is not the highest kashrus level, they do not go like Rav Moshe Feinstein in Israel. So everything in Israel that's even not Mahadran kosher is Chalav Yisrael.
Even the Chilonim and Tel Aviv.
No, exactly. Any milk that's under even Israeli, you know, the Israeli rabbinate hechsher is Chalav Yisrael, but they are makel on powdered milk. The only thing is, by their mahadrin, they're not. So powdered milk, a lot of people I know that even our machmer Chalav Yisrael are makel, are lenient on powdered milk, because they make the argument that powdered milk only can come from a kosher source like butter. And may Hashem help us to know that definitely they once asked Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, why is there so much, why is already back in the 80s there was terrible assimilation. So he said that all of these laws that the Rabbanim made of, perhaps we could talk more about Bishul Yisrael and Pas Yisrael and Yain Nesech, right, the wine of a non-Jew. He says all of these were created to deter us from assimilation. He said the second that people were lax and lenient in these laws, it was the beginning of the end. So therefore, as a final note, somebody that does want to be very serious about keeping these halachot, all the power to him. Nowadays, it's very easy to keep it if you live in a major metropolitan area, but those that are makel are on very, very solid ground, especially if they're going on powdered milk, which is already you have 4 levels of heterim, right? You have Rav Soloveitchik that says everything is because it's machinized, it's impossible. The Pri Chadash Rav Moshe, and then you have the heter of Rav Si Pesach Frank that says that it's basically butter. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.